This is professors in cars getting coffee.
Soldi, 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 tanti soldi, beati siano I soldi, I bene amati soldi perché?
So I guess my first question is one that I ask every professor is, what is a day in the life of Professor Manny?
Ooh.
At
Well,
home, not your
oh, when
professor
I'm not at school?
Yeah, when you're not at school.
Well, I have a husband who is very lovely, and I have known him since I was 10.
Wow.
But he's only been my husband since I was 21.
That's good.
And yeah, he was the annoying little boy at church and grew up to be a nice man. So I married him, and I have a little boy who just turned 5, and I have a little boy who just turned 2. So my life is usually full of Elmo and Disney movies and books and playing hide and seek. And I like to bake. I have a tea shelf because I really like hot tea.
Are you tea over coffee always?
I love both.
Okay,
I
because
feel
we're gonna
like,
get coffee.
why
right
would
now.
you pick?
Yeah.
Oh, and I love coffee in the afternoon.
La 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 cha 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 la 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 la. Soldi, 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 tanti soldi, beati siano I soldi, I bene amati.
So you were born.
I was.
Okay. When, or not when, where?
I was born in Phoenix, Arizona.
That's right, your family came out and visited you.
Yes, yes.
And did you grow up in Phoenix your whole life?
All of my life until I came to Point Loma for college.
At age 18?
At age 18.
So you went from Phoenix to Point Loma, and then you've stayed here ever since, or have you gone
No,
elsewhere?
I have gone all over the place. So after I finished up at Point Loma, I went to Kansas City
Okay.
and did my master's degree there. We came back to Point Loma for 1 year, and I was teaching as a visiting professor while I was applying to PhD programs. And then we moved to Lafayette, Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
And I did a PhD program there.
What's the differences that you've noticed between Phoenix, San Diego, and Louisiana? The biggest, like that's...
Louisiana, southern Louisiana is kind of, it should be another country.
Really?
In a good way, yeah. It has such a distinct culture and everything. The food and the music and yeah, it was a really fun place to be.
So you spent some time in Louisiana, and you say you think that that should be a different country because of its food, culture, music, all of the above?
Yes.
What did you like the
it's-
most about Louisiana that you can't find here, besides like the cuisine?
Oh, the festivals.
Really? Party all the time?
It was all of the food, and they had festivals for really bizarre things. So we went to a giant omelet festival where they
Omelet?
had, yes. So there was a giant pan in the middle of the street, and they put 5,025 eggs into the pan. And
Is there a
mixed in other
significance
things.
between 525?
It was the Giant Omelet Friendship Festival, and there were chefs from other French-speaking places who
Okay.
came and helped like stir with these giant rake-looking things.
How big is this pan? How big are we
It
talking?
filled up like a street.
Like a
it
cul-de-sac
was, It was
size one?
in a town center of this little city, and it was giant.
Did you try some of the omelet?
Of course.
And what kind
They
of omelet
served
was
it
it?
up, so it's the Friendship Omelet Festival. So they make the omelet and then they dish it up and give it to everybody, and so
Wow.
everybody sits around eating omelet. It's amazing.
Yeah, I can't see that happening. Yeah, I can't even imagine the
I know.
codes. The codes you'd have to
Southern
pull to do
Louisiana
that.
is like nowhere else.
That's insane.
Yeah, wonderful things happen.
So where do you go after Louisiana? Back here?
So when I was finishing up my PhD program, I applied to 50 positions that were something to do with teaching creative writing at
Wow.
some kind of college or university. And I ended up going from there to Azusa Pacific University. And I was there for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what drew you to creative writing? Always? Did you always know?
I started writing poetry before I could write. I
Okay.
started making up poems when I was about 4, and my granny helped me write them down.
Do you remember a very early one of
I
yours?
do. I remember my first one.
What's your first poem?
Okay, it's brilliant. So you ready for this brilliance?
Yes.
The never-ending story really never ends. For someone who I really love really is my friend.
How old were you when you read
4.
that? Wow. I wouldn't even thought of that now.
My best guess is that I probably saw maybe a
The
preview
Never-Ending
or something
Story?
for the Never-Ending Story. I hadn't seen the movie, but I probably heard it and thought, ooh, that's interesting language. But
What does that mean to
otherwise,
you, that never-ending story poem?
Well, I think the most significant thing about it is that my granny wrote it down. Like it means a lot to me that she thought my poem creation at age 4 was
So
worth writing down.
You just recited it to her, and then she
Uh-huh.
wrote it down.
She would write things down. I do this with my son now. He'll tell me things and I'll write them down.
And did you grow up with siblings?
Yes,
And older, younger, middle?
yes. It's complicated.
Okay.
So I was an only child until I was 6.
Okay.
I picked my dad and sisters out at church.
How does that work?
So I had a single mom. We were going to church, and there were these 2 little girls at church who I loved, and I would cry when I had to leave them on Sundays when church was over. And so one Sunday, their dad told me that if I wouldn't cry, he would invite me over with my mom, and I could play with Joy and Jill. And so he invited us over, and he invited another couple from the church over who had a little girl. And so we started doing that like every Friday night, and the adults would sit around and play card games, and the kids would play together. And that was pretty much how my parents got together.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool power.
I completely take credit for picking out
You're
my
just
dad
a
and
little
sisters.
Cupid, like you two.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So, and then they got married and had a boy and a girl soon after. So then I was in the middle of 5 kids.
So basically, your best friends became your siblings.
Yes.
That is so cool.
I know. It
That's
was
awesome.
really great.
Do you have a favorite part of writing that you like? For instance, do you really enjoy the brainstorming, or do you really enjoy getting it, like having it click and getting it down on paper?
I think I love the moment when I have written a poem and it feels wonderful.
You like the
and
end
it's
result.
The immediate end result. The place where I'm sitting there and I'm like, yes, I have written this poem, because the next step is, oh no, I might never ever write a poem again.
That's your next thought is,
Yeah.
what if this is the last
What if
thing
this
I'm
is
gonna have to
it?
offer?
Like, what if I never have another good idea and this is it? Yeah.
That's scary.
I know.
That's
I know.
really scary.
I thought this was a weird thing, but I've talked to a lot of other poets who actually have the same process of, I have a great idea, I'm creating this thing, and yay, I created this thing, and about 2 seconds later,
So your favorite,
oh my goodness.
your favorite part is also the scariest part.
it's the part right before the scary part.
Seconds apart.
Right. It's like the moment of, yes, I have written.
You
the
lifted
thing.
your pen off the paper, and that's the best part. And then you look down, and you're like, oh, and then that's the scariest part.
It's like 2 seconds later.
That is
to,
crazy.
I might never write.
That's
Yeah.
that is a really scary feeling.
It's kind of disturbing, yeah.
Wow. I kind of like the connecting ideas. Like I have this idea and I'm writing it, and then that goes into that. That's the part I like. When I get done, it's more of an accomplishing feeling, but it's not the best feeling. I feel like. But that is. Do you think you can change that feeling of being petrified that that's the last thing, or has it always been like that?
I think it's probably just something I live with and cope with. I'm not sure it would ever go away.
Was the 4-year-old you, when you wrote the Never Ending, when you're like, what if this is the last poem I ever write?
No, I think that didn't develop until later.
Okay. Anything important that I might have not have been?
I have a book being published this fall.
I should have asked.
That's
you that.
important. It's a poetry book.
Is it
coming
just
out
a-
in November?
Compilation of different poems that you've written.
It is. It's a collection of poems that explore the transition to motherhood. So some of them are based on dreams that I had when I was pregnant with my first son. Some of them are responding to fairy tales or biblical narratives or other kinds of stories that involve mothers. Actually, I did a hybrid dissertation. So part of it was the kind of scholarly literary paper, and the other part of it was a full-length poetry collection. So it's a heavily revised version.
Is there any
of
art
my
from your
dissertation.
kid in the?
No, I thought about it though. I considered having that as cover art.
Immediately, my thought was like having your child's drawing as a.
Yeah, I think that might be happening in a future book, but not this one. So.
Where can students and people watching go to find this and go to pick it up?
The book won the Main Street Rag Poetry Book Award, so it is on the Main Street Rag Publishing website. The book is called Tasty Other.
Tasty Other. I should
If
have
you
asked
sound
you.
out the word mother,
Tasty.
mother,
I'm sorry, I don't
like
get.
other.
Oh,
Tasty Other.
mother.
Because that poets do weird things. I'm sorry.
Once it clicked, that was great.
Yeah. So the
Taste-
book is called Tasty Other, and it's from Main Street Rag Publishing Company.
Tasty Other.
Yep.
Thank you so much for sitting down with us. I
Thank
had
you
a
for having
blast.
me. Thanks for the coffee.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for the cute pumpkin.
Oh, this was here when we got here.
Oh, that's
that
cool.
wasn't my
Yeah.
idea.
I thought it was staged. Intentional pumpkin.
I mean, maybe I have to ask them. All right.
Soldi, soldi, ovvero papabraschi, si danno donne, whisky, salute ai figli maschi perché chi ha tanti soldi vive come un pascià e a piedi caldi se